Stop scrolling and listen, because this story will change how you see power, loyalty, and truth forever. Imagine the daughter of one of the richest black CEOs in America, pretending to be nothing more than a cleaner in her father's own empire. Nobody knew her face, nobody suspected her power. But when the lies, the greed, and the disrespect reached a breaking point, she picked up the phone and made one call that erased an entire staff in seconds. If you love stories with shocking twists, secrets exposed, and justice served in the most unexpected ways, hit subscribe right now because this one is going to keep you hooked until the last word. The story began in the heart of New York City, where luxury skyscrapers touched the sky and wealth walked on polished marble floors. But behind the gleaming glass walls of Harrington Global, the empire built by billionaire CEO Richard Harrington, there were secrets brewing like poison in a golden cup. Because his daughter, Amara Harrington, a fiercely independent and highly educated woman who had studied business in London and law at Harvard, had grown frustrated by the whispers she overheard. At family dinners, the complaints from her father about staff disloyalty, mismanagement, and corruption, and she realized that the only way to truly see the truth was to descend from her pedestal of privilege, shed her expensive designer clothes, and become invisible in the very empire she was meant to inherit. So she disguised herself as a humble cleaner with fake documents, a borrowed name, and no one but herself knowing her secret. Not even her father, who had no idea that his daughter would walk the very hallways of his billion-dollar company wearing janitor's overalls, carrying a mop and bucket and sweeping floors where executives whispered their cruelties. In those first days, Amara felt the sting of being invisible, of hearing the executives mock the cleaners, of watching managers bark orders and slam doors, and she quickly learned that Harrington Global was not the perfect empire her father imagined, but a toxic jungle of greed, disrespect, and arrogance. Because while the CEO worked tirelessly at the top floor believing his staff shared his values, down below the so-called professionals treated the low-class workers as if they were disposable trash, mocking accents, laughing at financial struggles, and stealing credit for the real hard work done by others. And Amara took notes quietly. In her little hidden journal, recording names, times, words, and actions, her mind slowly piecing together the truth. But things took a darker turn when she witnessed not only verbal abuse but financial corruption. Secret deals forged in shadows. Managers pocketing bonuses meant for hard-working employees. And one particular supervisor named Daniel Cross, who prided himself on humiliating cleaners in front of everyone, smirking as if power was his birthright. And Amara, biting her tongue, began to wonder how many like him had rotted her father's empire from within. Each day, her disguise as a cleaner gave her a closer look at the rot beneath the golden surface, and each night she lay awake wondering when and how to act, because she was not only a daughter undercover, but a woman carrying the weight of a secret that could either save her father's company or tear it down completely. Weeks turned into months, and Amara became almost invisible in the building, blending perfectly into the shadows, quietly sweeping and scrubbing while her ears caught every conversation that echoed in the corridors of power. And she soon discovered shocking truths that even she hadn't expected. Entire departments signing off fake expense reports, mid-level managers holding closed-door meetings where bribes were exchanged, and most disturbingly, a clique of senior executives led by Daniel Cross plotting behind her father's back, laughing about how the old man at the top was too blind to see that his empire was being robbed from the inside, their plan being to slowly bleed the company until it was weak enough to be taken over. And as Amara listened in silence, her blood boiled, but she knew patience was her greatest weapon. She became friends with other cleaners, with receptionists, with delivery men who were ignored by the powerful. And through them she gathered stories of humiliation, racism, and mistreatment, building her silent case against the arrogant staff. But one night, while cleaning the 15th floor, She stumbled upon a document accidentally left behind that confirmed millions of dollars were being funneled into offshore accounts by executives under fake project names, and she knew this was no longer just about disrespect, but a massive fraud that could collapse the empire her father had built. And in that moment, she realized her mission was bigger than revenge. It was about justice, legacy, and truth. But the risk was greater too, because if she revealed herself too soon, the entire plan could collapse and the corrupt staff could destroy evidence or even target her father. The deeper she went undercover, the more dangerous it became, especially when Daniel Cross began to notice her presence, questioning why this quiet little cleaner was always around during sensitive meetings, his eyes narrowing as if suspicion was crawling into his mind. Yet Amara never broke character, lowering her gaze and pretending to be timid, while inside her mind calculated the perfect strike, knowing that one phone call to the right person at the right time could bring everything crashing down on the guilty, but also risk exposing her own identity, which was the last card she had to play. The breaking point came on a cold Friday evening when Amara overheard Daniel Cross and his group celebrating in the executive lounge, bragging about how they had successfully siphoned another $10 million out of the company and mocking her father as an old fool too blinded by pride to see the knives in his back. And Amara's hands trembled with rage as she wiped down the glass tables while they laughed. But she forced herself to stay calm, because tonight was the night she had planned for weeks. The night when all the pieces would fall into place. And she pulled out her phone and made the call. A single call to her father's private line. Her voice steady but disguised at first until she revealed her true identity, shocking him with every word as she explained everything she had witnessed. Every name, every document, every cruel act, and she told him she had proof beyond denial that his empire was under siege from the inside. And Richard Harrington, stunned but trusting his daughter's brilliance, activated his own private investigation. Team instantly, and within hours, the board of directors, auditors, and even federal agents were moving quietly into place. The following Monday, the building that had laughed at the little cleaner was turned upside down as investigators stormed through offices, seizing computers and documents, while Amara stood silently in her janitor's uniform, watching chaos unfold. And when the staff finally realized she was not just a cleaner but the CEO's daughter, their faces turned pale with horror, especially Daniel Cross, who stammered and tried to justify himself, but the evidence was undeniable. And in one sweeping decision, Richard Harrington, with the board behind him, fired the entire corrupt staff. On the spot, their careers destroyed in seconds by the very woman they had mocked, and Amara, still holding her mop, stood taller than ever, her disguise now a crown of justice, the invisible cleaner who became the unseen sword. The aftermath shook the business world like an earthquake. Headlines splashing across American and British media with bold titles, "Black CEO's Daughter Exposes Corrupt Empire from Within." And while rivals expected Harrington Global to collapse, the opposite happened, because investors, clients, and the public applauded the courage and brilliance of Amara's undercover mission, calling it one of the most daring corporate cleanups in modern history. And the workers who had been humiliated for years finally felt vindicated, many promoted into the positions left behind by the fired staff, creating a new culture of respect and equality inside the company. Amara, though celebrated as a hero, remained humble, reminding everyone that her disguise had not been about playing a role, but about living the truth of the invisible, those who worked in silence and were treated as nothing, and she vowed never to let her father's empire forget its foundation, the dignity of every worker, no matter their uniform. Daniel Cross and his allies faced not only disgrace, but federal charges, their wealth stripped, their names ruined, and their arrogance turned into a lesson written in shame, and in the final board meeting where Amara was officially introduced. As the rightful heir to Harrington Global, her father looked at her with pride and said that she had proven not only her intelligence, but her heart. And in that moment, Amara realized her journey undercover had not just saved a company, but reshaped it forever. for she had walked in the shoes of the invisible, carried their pain, and turned it into power. And as the world applauded her courage, she whispered silently to herself that sometimes the strongest crown is not gold or diamonds, but the humility to pick up a mop, walk among the unseen, and rise above with justice in your hands. And that was the legacy she left for the world. The legacy of the cleaner who became the queen of an empire.